the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a wonderful, actually, it's kind of a crappy October 15th, Thursday, October 15th. The LA Galaxy just lose 4-0 to the San Jose Earthquakes. Lots of questions around this team. Guillermo Barros Schelotto, does he need to go? Chris Klein, does he need to go? Dennis DeClosa, does he get to stay? Dan Beckerman in charge of it all, where does he sit as well? And there's a little rumor about a former guy who you liked as a player who might come back as a coach. And you already know who I'm talking about, but I just don't want to say it until we get to that part. So we got a lot to talk about, including that Vancouver game as well. So still games going on. LA Galaxy still struggling. The slide continues. To help me do all of it, it's Eric, Portuguese Hammer Vieira. Eric, how's it going, buddy?
I've been better. You know, obviously with the way things went yesterday, that was rough. That was a rough hump day that we had to go through and endure. An absolute, you know, rear end kicking. You know, that was a clean sweep. Yeah, nasty game that we witnessed yesterday. So I'm sure that'll give us plenty to talk about today. That's the one positive. When the Galaxy are bad, the podcasting is good because there's plenty to talk about.
Is that true? Is it? I mean, I thought we were talking. This is what I had on the docket for tonight. I wanted to talk about the ghost that's in my room. And I wanted to talk about the fact that I caught people trying to steal packages from my neighbors on my camera, on my doorbell camera. That was really like the main things I wanted to hit tonight. Yeah, I know. There's some exciting stuff going on in this house. You know, with the global pandemic, with the ghost, and then, you know, catching people red-handed. So those were my things I wanted to talk about. Anything else you want to talk about, we can throw in there. It's kind of your show tonight.
I came ready. I have the pumpkin cream cold brew. It's tough to say 5 times fast. Drink of the season. Get yours now. Enter promo code HAMMER at your local Starbucks. Get 15% off. Try it. Take a video. Tell me what happens when you try that. But yeah, it's pumpkin season. Let's talk about that.
By the way, Logan in the chat room says, already guessing who the player is. He says Steven Gerrard is coming back to coach the LA Galaxy.
Ooh.
I thought that was
fun.
That's a fun one. We'll get to that. LA Galaxy lose 4-0 to the San Jose Earthquakes. Okay. How do we set this up correctly, Hammer? I mean, we don't want to talk about your TikToks and you almost getting like run down and handcuffed by security. We don't need that. Plus, you're banned from having any more TikToks. Not because the LA Galaxy said anything, because I'm saying it. The last one I think was over the line, and it certainly didn't help the LA Galaxy. So I don't think there's any reason to continue these shenanigans. So we don't want to talk about that. But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel justified because, you know, I think the TikToks were a bubble idea, you know, early on in quarantine, decided to start making some TikToks, and then they went and flamed out of the MLS's back tournament. So I stopped making TikToks and I said, you know what, they have a losing streak without the TikTok, so I might as well run it back. Figured, you know, I'm at the stadium, might as well get some good juju. Maybe there were some red flags when I had some people asking me questions and asking for my camera, asking for my badge number. I was chased around a little bit trying to get that video. So I know some people were asking for some TikToks, so I was, you know, trying my best to bring that for you for those of you who had interests. But it was not easy. I was sweating and running around pregame yesterday, but it was an interesting experience. So that didn't work either. Some people said, try a different leg or try a different dance or try something else. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe you just need to be Johnathan Dos Santos and you need to add some dancers to your TikToks. I think that would do as well. I mentioned that not to. Yeah, I mentioned that not to bring that up because I care. I mentioned it because I thought it was funny, and that's it. Yeah. So I really don't care what Johnathan Dos Santos does in quarantine, which is where he's at. We will talk about that a little bit as well. All right, here you go. Here's the LA Galaxy. It's a 4-0 loss to the San Jose Earthquakes. You know all about that. It's an interesting game because a lot of things happened. You have to dive into it and sort of see how the team started, how the LA Galaxy in particular started, where were the surprises in that start and the starting lineup, and then the formation was a surprise as well, although it wasn't a surprise, but it is a surprise, and then it wasn't a surprise, it didn't work. So we'll get into that. Jurgen Klinsmann, was that a good, succinct sort of answer there? Yeah, perfect.
You know, it was just as confusing as the lineup itself.
Good. I'm glad we got it. One thing happened that I think we kind of understood would eventually happen. You just didn't know when it was going to be. Johnathan Klinsmann makes his MLS and LA Galaxy debut. He starts in goal. This is going to be one of those times where you say something and it's not going to make sense if you try to talk about this 6 months from now or a year from now, or if you're listening to this podcast in 2021 because you are stuck maybe on a desert island and you have nothing else to listen to. You're going to hear us say that Johnathan Klinsmann had a very, very solid game for his LA Galaxy debut. In goal, made 7 saves in his LA Galaxy. You shouldn't have to do that to a 23-year-old goalkeeper, is make him make 7 saves in his debut, but he did, and he gave up 4 goals. So it's tough, and unless you watch the game, unless you saw it, you can't really reconcile that and say, yeah, that makes sense. And there's no reason why he shouldn't start the next game on Sunday. He did nothing, in my opinion, to sort of make that not happen, because you've already destroyed David Bingham. He's dead. You've killed him because Johnathan Klinsmann came out now. There is no more David Bingham. He's gone. It is just Johnathan Klinsmann because you basically said you're not good enough and we're going to start the 23-year-old. In my opinion, that's what happened. The confidence is toast.
I see it a little bit differently. I feel like Monty Python, not quite dead yet. So, Bingham's maybe not quite dead yet. And the reason for that is because it was a midweek game. They have a Sunday game coming up. Maybe this could be framed as we're giving you some rest, giving the young guy a shot. It was interesting yesterday that some of the narrative in the post-game discussion was, about the Johnathan Klinsmann debut and, how well he played. And I found that a little bit odd because the team lost 4-0. So to make, to highlight the goalkeeper in a 4-0 loss just seemed a little bit odd. But you're right. He made 7 saves and he looked good at moments. To me, the first goal, I think he wears, partial responsibility on that because it was a lot of responsibility. Yeah.
Just say it.
Yeah,
it's
it was a flood
clearance. That goal doesn't happen without that flood clearance.
Yes, the defense didn't help him, but at the same time, if he makes a different outlet pass or he has better clearance, then you're right, it doesn't happen. So he does wear responsibility for that. But the other goals, GBS mentioned it, that they weren't really his fault, that it's still, he still had a great game, made some great saves. Dan Stairs mentioned it in the post game that he made a great save on, I believe it was the 3rd goal where he made the initial save and then they ended up burying it afterward, but he did what he was supposed to do in the first time around. So you're right. He did have a good game and they still lost 4-0. So it seems counterintuitive to say it out loud. I because of this 4-0 loss, it left just such a nasty taste in my mouth and the way they played. I didn't really see that many positives, but when you go back, you look at the stats and you see what he was able to do and how the coach talked about him, how the captain talked about him, you see the writing on the wall that he could be the goalkeeper for the future, which is a good thing. So, on a day's rest after sleeping on it, I could see the Johnathan Klinsmann being the positive that you take away from this game. I could see him starting on Sunday. So we'll see if GBS feels like this was just, if he did tell Bingham that he framed it not to break his confidence, to say, we're giving you some rest. You're going to get back in there when you get another chance. It is hard to tell the starting goalkeeper, this guy just let in 4 goals and we're still going to start him ahead of you. That's a tough message to say, but, given the amount of saves that he made, and I don't like playing the what if game, but maybe the way Bingham was playing before, maybe they let in, 6 or 7 if Bingham's on the field, as opposed to what Klinsmann was able to bring him. So we'll never know. We can't play that game. But with the amount of saves that he made, I think he makes a case to get another opportunity to start, if not Sunday, at least, later on with a compacted schedule this season.
I liked how you said we can't play that game, but you fully played that game right before you played that game. So it's what I do. I was paying attention.
It's what I do. Yeah, but still.
Right. Ride that fence. Yep. I would like to point out, and you mentioned this, and I thought it was interesting because I've been doing this for a while, and I get used to this, and it's not used to the losing, but it's used to the awkward press conferences. And you mentioned it was awkward, and I didn't even really think about it, but yeah, it was super awkward. GBS's mannerisms, Dan Stairs coming in. The only 2 people to talk, by the way, you got the captain and you got GBS. Usually there would be 2 or 3 other players that would talk. Now, I know Sasha Klinsmann was supposed to be one of the people who was going to talk, and he was getting treatment, and that's one of the reasons he didn't. And you would expect that a vet like Sasha would come out and talk. And as a matter of fact, we tried to get Sasha for this show tonight, so that way we could talk to him, because quite honestly, one of the few people I think on the team right now who could tell us what is going on without throwing everybody under the bus and without, sort of getting frustrated. Sasha understands how to explain that stuff. So we tried to get him on, and that didn't work. We requested Dennis DeClosa. That didn't work. So, we tried to fill the docket here with just not me and Eric yelling and screaming. And, I sort of told the club as well. I said, you have a chance to sort of change the narrative just a little bit, or at least add to the narrative by having somebody come on and talk with us tonight, because otherwise it's going to be 60 minutes of you guys getting grilled, and you deserve to get grilled for it. So, it was one of those things. We wanted to open it up. We wanted to give them a chance, and it didn't happen. So we'll try again, and we'll go again. But you were talking about this awkward press conference, and it wasn't awkward for me because I've been in this before. But I remember going to this stuff, and it's awkward whenever you're in a locker room after a loss like this. Nobody's talking. It's quiet, right? You have GBS who doesn't necessarily want to answer questions. And I asked I don't think it was the first question to GBS. Maybe it was the first question. No, I didn't. I was like 3 or 4 down for GBS, and he was very short with all of the answers until I think he got to me, and then he had a long answer. And so one of the things you have to do is you have to keep asking questions. And I don't like the reporters who talk about stuff whenever it's 4-0 going to a positive. There's times to ask about positives, like the 6-3 loss was a time to talk about positive. You scored 3 goals. There were positives to take away from that. There was nothing positive from this. And Dan Stairs was like, no, I can't really see. I mean, yeah, Klinsman did a great job, and that's something. But that's not the question to ask here. If this had been a real press conference with us in the room, my follow-up question to was the team quitting on you? And I wanted to give GBS a chance to say it because he said it before, and he said, no, they're not. They're frustrated. It's like, okay, cool. But my follow-up question would have been do you still think you're the right person for this job? There has to be, it's not pressure. It's trying to figure out what they're thinking. And it's very difficult with GBS to find out what he's thinking a lot, especially in English. And that's not his fault. It's just he's not as expressive in English as he is in Spanish. And so you sort of have to ask him questions, and they need to be pointed. I mean, you talked about Scott French last week asking, is this the lowest point, right? There was no, Scott's not trying to be mean.
No, but he also picked the wrong week because they had a lower point that they can even go. So this week I felt, even though the score wasn't as high, the goal differential was higher, and I think this was a lower point, and the Galaxy now sit at an all-time low. But you're right, it was awkward, and as a member of the press, with all my experience that I have going to these games, the first time we went, It was a pretty quick process. You've mentioned it, that it's a quick process. After the game, they come right on, and it's they handle their business, answer those questions, and you keep moving. And I had a similar experience my first time out. The loss against Portland, long pause again. After the break, seemed like maybe there were some discussions going on in the locker room. Body language with Guillermo just didn't look quite right. And then this one, I think it was an even longer pause between the moment after the game, and then you saw how he came out and the way he spoke. One of the most interesting ones to me was when the question came up about Chicharito on, was there an injury concern? He didn't even let the reporter finish the question. He said, that was my decision. It's almost like he really wanted to slam that home, that it was his decision. It wasn't because of injury concern. It wasn't because of rest. He said it was my decision to bring more offense, to bring in Efrain Alvarez. So you see those
take
things.
Off, wait,
yeah.
You take off your most expensive player, right? And to get that is the supposed to be the offense, to bring in Efrain Alvarez, who is completely outmatched in Major League Soccer, and I think we've seen that this year. That's the decision you make. I don't disagree with him because I don't know how much, what other things you're going to do in terms of with that lineup and what he has done in the past. It's a sub that I sit there and say, okay, I understand it. From his mind. It's not a sub I necessarily understand from my mind. I understand it from the GBS mind. But he wanted to, and you're right, he pointed to this. Let's get to I want to finish the lineup because we got sidetracked with Klinsman, which was one of the changes. Yeah. The other change here is that Yoni Gonzalez started at striker, basically the second striker with Chicharito. This was a 4-4-2 formation. It lined up that way with Kitchen out on the right, with Leggett out on the right, Kitchen and Klushton in the middle, and Pavone on the left, and then Chicharito and Gonzalez up top as the 2. They were playing a 2-striker system, which is something that I have said and asked for on this show many times. And when I saw it, after about 5 minutes, I said, "Oh, not with Kitchen and Klushton in there." And this is the whole thing, is that it almost felt like to me, Eric, somebody said, "Hey, GBS, you need to try a 4-4-2. And he was like, okay, I'll try it. Because, and this was pointed out on our Discord as well, is Guillermo knows that Kitchen and Kleshin are not the speediest guys to cover a lot of ground in the center. And then he helped them zero by not making Leggett and Pavone pinch in at all. It was really more of a 4-2-4 formation, which people said on Twitter, and I agreed with 100%. Leggett and Pavone were pegged on the top line with Chicharito and Gonzalez.
Yeah, that didn't leave a lot of room there. And you're right. We did want to see, and we were clamoring for a 4-4-2 last week and talking about how that puts Chicharito in a better position. But then when you look at the opponent, the way that Almeida has San Jose playing, where they're constantly chasing, this isn't the game where you try that out. This is the game where GBS's success, where you sit and you have your defenders defend and then you counterattack. This is where that strategy works against a team like San Jose. Trying the 4-4-2 is maybe picking your moment with a different opponent. But it was exciting at the beginning of the game. One of the first things I noticed was the formation and the two forwards. I noticed this the last game. He brought in Gonzalez as a forward, and I thought, well, is he going to use him as a forward, or are we bringing him in for the wing? So to see him utilizing him as a forward, shows that he knows that there's a weakness up there. They need to put another attacker, which they don't have, and so he's trying to play him and put that square peg in the round hole. So that was one of those things. I didn't even notice that Klinsman got the start because I was so excited about the 4-4-2. But you're right, it didn't work. I just hope that he doesn't look at this and say, it didn't work in these first 25 minutes. I'm never going to revisit it. Because you're right, with Kleshin and Kitchen in the middle, that's not the personnel that it's going to work with. That with Kleshin and Kitchen in there, that's where you need your 5 midfielders to make up for having them. They're not going to be your playmakers. They're not going to be pulling the strings. And quite frankly, when you have those two players flanking your midfield, it's no wonder that you give up 4 goals and you couldn't create a single goal.
Well, let's get tactical for a second. And I don't normally really love to dig into this stuff, but this is one of those basic things. It's one of the things that was huge in the U.S. men's national team that we've talked about, over and over the years. They talk about the empty bucket, right? The empty bucket is the most feared consequence of a bad 4-4-2 combination. And what the empty bucket means is the midfielders on the outside. It's Pavone and Leggett. What it means is that they don't pinch in, and usually it means that they're moving forward and not coming back to help the midfield. And so what you have is Chicharito and Gonzalez stretching the field. You have Jet and Pavone that are going up to meet Chicharito and Gonzalez. And there's this giant empty bucket right in the center where Kitchen and Kleshin have to either fill the space, but they have to fill it in a way that's smart against counterattacks, that defends well through the center of the field. And what you had here again was Leggett pressing up high. You had Pavone pressing up high. And usually what happens is one of those outside wings will press forward while the other one might hold back a little bit and slide into the midfield. And what happens is you get 3 midfielders all of a sudden that slide across, and you can cover and make up for the 3 attackers that you're sending forward. And then sometimes you can have one of the central midfielders jump in a little bit as well. They can get into the attack as well. We saw this be successful in this game, and it was only once, but there was a time at the beginning of the game they were in a 4-4-2, and there were 4 people in that box. And you're like, yes, that's what it's supposed to be. We talk about giving Chicharito options. He now gets to move off of 2 or 3 people, and there are other decoys, and you're putting pressure on the defense. What happens in that? Galaxy turn the ball over, and it goes the other way. And all of a sudden it goes the other way, and there's nobody there.
And that started with a question, like a give and go with Pavone and springing him loose, and then Gonzalez and Chicharito. They were all up there waiting, and then it just ended up they turn it over. So you have to promise me that you're not going to laugh. So when you talk about the empty bucket, don't laugh. Yes. And I know I'm probably going to get grilled for this, but when Cosmo SC was going over those tactics, and again, it's the beautiful thing about pro clubs and FIFA, everyone is one individual player, so it's not the computer doing the work. The individuals have to do the work, and we switched to an empty bucket. I know it sounds crazy. I know it's FIFA. I know it's pro clubs, but you're right. When those wingers, someone has to commit to tracking back. Pavone and Leggett are not going to play defense. Chicharito and Gonzalez are not going to play defense. So you're right. You had a 4-2-4, and that leaves you completely exposed. Those wings need to commit to go back and fill the bucket and help out there. So it worked for Cosmo SC, but it did not work for the LA Galaxy in this week.
Yeah. Don't have an empty bucket.
I'm impressed.
I shook my head and I was very disappointed. But pinch in too. here's the thing: is every time I say that Pavone doesn't work back, somebody will point out they're like, he did on this play, and I'm like, congratulations, one play where Pavone plays defense. And by the way, there's people calling for Pavone to play no defense and for him to stay up and try to be sprung on the counterattack more. Sure, but you're limiting the number of people. Yeah,
but I also wouldn't mind switching Gonzalez and Pavone. Put Pavone up there as a tandem with Chicharito, and then have Gonzalez play on the wing if he's not going to be committed to playing defense. And you're right. They're right to point out that Pavone does hustle back. Those are hustle plays. It's not a consistent commitment to defense, but he does hustle and he does make a lot of recoveries. So yeah, credit him for that, but he doesn't consistently contribute on the defensive side, but also nor should he. That's not his job. His job is to be a member of the attack and to score goals.
Yeah, and none of that happened on this. I mean, you also have to look at Araujo and Insua on this as well. People want to know. I was talking in our group text this morning, and we were going back and forth. There was a whole bunch of stuff we were sort of arguing about, but we were talking about Araujo and Insua, and it might have been in Discord as well. I don't know. I was talking with like a zillion people this morning because everybody was real fired up, which I can understand. Araujo and Insua. If you want to stop bleeding 4 goals, and by the way, the LA Galaxy's minus 13 goal differential is the second worst they've ever had in history. If the season ended right now, they would finish with the second worst in history. Only 2007 was worse. 2017 was worse. So if you want to stop bleeding goals, I have a way that you can stop bleeding goals. You'll probably only lose the game 1-0. It's probably what will end up happening is tell Araujo and Insua to stay home. Actually have four defenders back there. All right, and GBS does that. His system doesn't work. And what we see in this game, by the way, is after 25 minutes, Eric, what happened?
It's what happened is they started pushing forward and left them exposed on the counter, and they got there. So the other thing, if you ask Araujo and Insua to stay home, then who else is going to create those crosses and create the attack?
Right.
I think that's all part of it. You need them to push forward and to overlap, but that's the key word. It's overlap. It's not Leggett and Araujo both move up together, or Pavone and Insua both move up together, which is where they find them. That's the problem. It doesn't become an overlap. It becomes 6 players moving forward, and then just Stairs and Depew. They're as a 2-man backline by themselves. That's oftentimes what ends up happening.
Yeah, and by the way, they're getting and they didn't have good games. I'm not going to say that Stairs and Depew played well. They didn't. And
should there be
I don't think that they
there?
Would tell you. Who else? I
giving up 10 goals in 2 games. But
where else are you going to go?
Do you give Pipo another chance?
Well, no.
If you pull, if Pipo was out on the field, you'd make a switch.
Yeah, but he's not. And you played that game already. We see that's the thing. We've seen most of these things here. Did the Galaxy go? You're going to have to look outside the Galaxy in order to do anything. People are talking about playing a 3-man back line. I don't know how that works because they've been bleeding goals with, Well, actually, if they played a 3-man back line, they'd have one more defender back there than they normally have, which is usually just Depew and Steres.
Commit to staying home. Yeah.
Yeah, if they commit to staying home, which they don't. I mean, the big problem here is, and in the 4-4-2, and after 25 minutes, they switched out of it, and it was done. And it never came back. And I don't know if we'll ever see it again with the way GBS sort of switched out of it.
Unfortunate.
They were right to switch out of it. They were absolutely 100% right. They were getting killed down the middle of the field, and you're asking Kitchen and Kleshin to cover too much ground if you're not going to have Leggett and Pavone play in there. You brought Leggett inside. You took Yanni Gonzalez back to that right side, and now you had more of the 4-2-3-1 that or the 4-5-1, however you really want to look at it. But you had more of the standard sort of defensive or offensive, the standard formation we've seen the LA Galaxy in, and they got better. And they played better, which is something that you should sort of also take, is that this LA Galaxy team, after they switched formations, put a lot more pressure on San Jose, did a better job. Was it good enough? Not even close. But through that entire basically 25 minutes up to the 44th minute, whenever San Jose finally scored, the LA Galaxy were surviving, and they were starting to build some momentum into that. So that 44th minute goal, and it started with the flub clearance from Klinsman. Kleshin couldn't get to the ball. The ball eventually got kicked out to the right-hand side. And Steres are looking at that cross as it comes across because it was sort of put in from that right-hand side. So you would expect that Araujo would be back there somewhere, except that he had been pressing up for the distribution, and because he pressed up, he was nowhere to be found. Then Perry Kitchen ends up being your back post defense. If Perry Kitchen is your back post defense on a cross deep into the box, the game is already over. And you saw that. And it was a ball that came down and he barely got his head to it. And it was a good pass to the top of the box. And Steres and Depew got sucked inside and there's no pressure there. I would point out that if everybody's in the correct position for that, Lima, who ended up scoring that first goal, is actually probably Kitchen's mark, because he's back in behind the line. He's sitting back. And so Kitchen, it's easier for Kitchen to move that direction than Depew and Steres, but he's not. He's over in the right-hand side of the box. So, I mean, there's a total breakdown, but it's individuals, Eric. This is not a team. And you heard Joe Tatino talking about it. You didn't, because I was listening to the broadcast. You,
I heard
you were
afterward.
at the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. And lots of people have. But you look at this. This is individuals. I saw in the chat room, and I don't remember who said it, and I don't want to call you out either because I totally disagree with you. But you said, you can't depend on a team like this that's lazy. This team is not lazy. They are exhausted at the end of the game, but they're running for the wrong reasons with no plan whatsoever. So they're using all this energy to do absolutely nothing.
That's where it's worse, because if this team were lazy, that'd be an excuse. The fact that they're not lazy makes it worse, because then you're running, you're like you said, you're running around effortlessly, and it's not happening for you. You mentioned if Perry Kitchen is your last line of defense, the game is over. Well, conversely, I mentioned this in my player grades. I thought Perry Kitchen had a decent game, but if Perry Kitchen is your playmaker, if he's your number 10, if he's the one who's pulling the strings to make things happen, conversely, the game is also over, because he's not the guy who should be your playmaker. That's not the guy who you're going to build your offense through and is going to be the one springing attack. So you're right. He shouldn't be the last guy on defense, but he also shouldn't be that pivot person. He does well in that bulldog role, that kind of faux stopper role. That's where he works. When, unfortunately, Kleshin seems to want to play that same type of position. So it's a disaster when you put them both together. So I don't think they're lazy. I agree with that. And you see the same things, the calls for Chicharito. He's out of shape. He's lazy. The out of shape thing, I think there may be a little bit of validity to that, but who's to tell, with everything that's been going on this year. But I don't think he's lazy. I see him making runs. I see him making the effort. But on that same token, maybe that's worse. If this is the best that we can get for Chicharito, that's a really bad sign.
And let's focus on Chicharito a little bit, because I've been on the camp of wait and see. Let's see how everything plays out. Let's see where we're going. It's not too early to say this is going to be a giant bust. And for people who have been saying it all along, congratulations, you guessed correctly, because you guessed.
Take your victory lap.
Yeah. It's like good job. But at the same time, what you're seeing is a frustration, and Guillermo talked about it more than anything, because I asked if the team quit. He has called out the team before for quitting, and I'm like, all right, do you think the team quit? I didn't think they quit. I wanted to hear what he had to say. Because he has said that, and he has used that as motivation, especially after the LAFC game. So I wanted to hear it. It was interesting to hear him say frustration, and for me, that's what I see with Chicharito. But I saw one good move from Chicharito the entire game. And he got one ball and was able to run downhill. He got it. He turned quickly. He moved quickly, and he was looking for distribution and looking for a pass. It was great. It's exactly what I want to see him do like 30 times a game. But that's not happening. He's not getting those touches. And yeah, some of it's on him. Some of it's on Sebastian Lletget, who seems to be like convinced that his spot is also right around where Chicharito's is. Some of it is Gonzalez, who's clearly just not 100% there yet, and I wouldn't expect him to be, but I am expecting him to be in the next 3 or 4 games a lot better than he has been.
It's also been a couple weeks. I think I'm ready to start seeing a little bit more from him. I was a little bit disappointed with his performance, with his short spells when he came off the bench. I was expecting some physicality. I was expecting, the nickname is Speedy. I'm not seeing that speed with him, and I'm not seeing the physicality. I'm seeing someone who likes to go to ground a little too easily. I think it's about time we start to see these developments happen. And then back to Chicharito, you're right. He does when he gets those passes. I think he does really well receiving them and holding up the play. The only thing is he receives those passes on the outside of the 18 near the corner flag, or he checks in near the center circle. And what's he going to do? Yeah, he can hold the ball there, but he's not going to make a move. He's not going to speed past anyone. So that's not where you want him holding the ball. You want him in a different position. You want to have him hold it up in the box. And it just seems like they can't get the ball to him where he's most deadly, they're feeding him the ball in all the wrong positions. So it's not 100% on him, but at the same time, he's the one running to those positions to get that service. So he's not putting himself in the right position either.
It was interesting hearing Kobe Jones and Joe Tutino talk about the team. They were being honest with their assessment during the game, and I agree with them. They talked about it, and I know that the supporters groups, especially on the North side, have sort of put out a statement, and I know a lot of Galaxy fans have gone with that. And it's basically talking about what Joe Tutino said, and I think it's interesting that the fans have captured a quote from Joe Tutino, from a guy who works for the LA Galaxy, but who also has seen every LA Galaxy team play since its inception and has been part of that. I think he was the stadium announcer for the first year, actually. So he wasn't actually the play-by-play guy. So he was that, but after that, he's been the play-by-play guy for a very long. He's seen it all, Eric. And so for him to come in there and say, this isn't good enough. They're not. It looks like they're not playing for the badge. And I'll find the exact quote again. But that means something when he says that. You saw, Carlos Ruiz put out a little statement saying, that this isn't good enough. The effort isn't good enough, and he hopes that there's better times ahead for the club. You're talking about guys who knows what it means to play for this badge, and we've talked about this. Is who on this team is that champion? Who on the team is that guy who knows how to win, who knows what it means to be an LA Galaxy player? Because it used to be filled with guys who knew what it meant to be an LA Galaxy player. You had Landon Donovan, you had Mike McGee, you had Alan Gordon was a guy who knew what it meant to be an LA Galaxy player. All those guys. Who is that on this team? And it's so far removed now from an MLS Cup. 2014 was a long time ago. I actually have a calendar that I keep track of with all the days. Yeah. It's been since the last one. I think we're close to like 1,500 or no, more than that. I think it's like 2,000. 2,000 days now where you've been.
You have too many countdowns on your counter there. But I think you're right. You look at this roster and who are the veteran players, and the two names that stand out are Sebastian Lletget and Daniel Stairs. And I think when you talk about the players who know what it means, and this is with no disrespect to Lletget or Stairs, but you need to have the right combination of elite playing level and also the swagger and confidence and understanding what it means. And I think while someone like Dan Stairs knows what it means, knows how to say the right things, knows how to captain the team, he just, he maybe doesn't have that elite level confidence and swagger that you need, kind of like a Jelle Van Dam style. I'm gonna be a little nasty because I know that this means a little something extra against San Jose. I don't see that with anyone on this roster. So it's right to make that statement. And you go back to what the statement that Victoria Block and all the supporters groups, was a little harsh, but I think they were fair with their criticism as well. And, how they've been supporting the club since the beginning, and how it's unacceptable to them, and they expect more, and you have to get credit for them because, fans are not allowed at the stadium, but fans are at the stadium outside. They're playing the drums. They're going there with scarves. They're singing outside the stadium before the game. They're singing outside the stadium after the game. They are there to show support. They bleed the blue, white, and gold for this club. And so if they're going to put that effort, they're going to be the ones who are representing this club. And if it's unacceptable to them, they're right to call it out. So, respect to them for working together to release that statement, because I think that this is the low point of the season and something needs to change.
Yeah, by the way, everybody always tries to gatekeep how people protest these things. And I don't gatekeep that. I actually, as long as you're not physically hurting anybody and really emotionally, don't be attacking people. I don't care what you do, but you have every right to do whatever you think you need to do in order to have your voice heard. So if you don't want to renew your season tickets, don't renew your season tickets. You don't want to buy any more merch, don't buy a merch. You want to write a protest song and sing it out front, for Chris Klein whenever he's coming in and out of the thing, you can do that as well. All of those things are acceptable and reasonable, and it doesn't make you any less of a fan to show that, people are like, well, you should never boo your team. Well, why not? Yeah. I'm not one of those people. If you're disappointed with all of the time and money and effort that you're putting into something, you have every right, in my opinion, to boo a team. So all that stuff is fine. By the way, the total number for as of right now, because the last time the LA Galaxy won MLS Cup was December 7th, 2014, is 2,139 days since then. And I know on the Riot Squad cast, I was talking to Chris earlier today, and he was informing me that on June 15th, 2021, the LA Galaxy will have gone longer than at any point in their history without winning an MLS Cup. And that previous period was 1996 to 2002.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
So from 2014
to 2021.
To 2020.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, by the way, the commercial underground in our chat says, Eric, can you make a disappointed TikTok video? Can you do disappointed on TikTok? Is that an emotional range or loud on the platform?
I have some options. I also, I have that fine line because do people want a depressed, disappointed TikTok? They definitely exist. It's definitely a thing. There's a way to make them. So, there are options.
I was going to say, can you do the Charlie Brown one from Arrested Development where you're just walking and it's just raining on you the whole time? I would take that. That one would be a good one.
Take some editing software.
So do you have anything else about this particular game, or can we move on? Because it's not something. Hold on before I even get to that. Do not sit here and say
we do have more.
Yeah. No, there is just a little bit. Is that players don't have a right to say you throw this away and you move on. Not this game, not this time. This has to stick with them for the rest of the season. If they don't want this to be a repeat of everything that they've done so far, this game has to annoy them. This game needs to be thought of next year whenever the season starts. This game needs to go on and on and on. And it's not because it was the worst game of the year. I think the LAFC loss in the bubble was way worse, but it was also the bubble. So like there's ways to sort of talk your way out of that, and it's you can do that. But having said that, that team that lost to LAFC 6-2 is the same team that just lost to their original rival, San Jose 4-0. And I'm not sure which is worse. They're both really bad, but those games need to stick in your minds. There's no turning the page. Same with the fans. One of the things I got so much crap for was in fact, somebody like kind of almost wanted to beat me up. It was a lot of fun. Was having the wooden spoon in the studio whenever we had it in there. And somebody said, why do you keep showing that thing? And I said, I want everybody to remember what happens when you fail in Major League Soccer. It's that trophy. It's that wooden spoon. And if it gets put on somebody's mantle and it doesn't get shown all the time, then you forget what happens. And right now, it seems like the LA Galaxy have a front office who have forgotten what the consequences of putting together a bad team, I think with bad tactics, and a manager that seems to be losing, the trust of the team. When you have all that stuff go wrong, this is what happens. And it happened in 2017, and it'll happen again if you keep letting. So yeah, that's now I'm ready to turn the page. I can turn the page.
Well, I'm not. I can still keep going, but you're right to that point where I agree with the wooden spoon needed to be there. I sat in front of it every episode. It hung over my shoulder like an albatross. But you're right; it's a constant reminder that things need to change and things need to get better. Back to this game, I think this game is arguably one of their worst game of the season. You look at the possession, you look at all the stats. There wasn't any category. Even the 6-2 loss, you could at least say there were 2 goals, even though they're a penalty and an own goal, you can still say, well, they forced the issue. This one, they didn't force any issue. Nothing happened. So there's an argument that this was the worst game. But if they have this performance earlier in the year, they have this performance in the bubble, it's different. This is now 7th game without a win, 6th loss in a row. This is, I like to use this term a lot, persistent infringement. 1 loss, 2 loss. It's okay. We'll bounce back. This is it. We're going to bounce back. We've lost 3 times. We've lost 4 times. Okay, time to bounce back. We've lost 5 times. Okay, this is the game where we turn it around. And you don't see that. You see, I was talking with someone at the stadium as we were watching GBS walking out to the field alone, head down, hands in his pockets. He looked like a defeated man before the game started. That's not to say your body language needs to be up and you need to be jumping up and down and being Ted Lasso every step of the way. But at the same time, you could tell that you didn't feel it. You didn't see that we're going to bounce back. This is the time to make things right. We've lost 5 in a row. Let's turn it around. You don't see that. And I think that's where this becomes a low point of the season, because this isn't a one-off. This is now the 6th time in a row that this has happened, and that's where it becomes unacceptable, when this becomes normal.
Two things that I'll take from what you just talked about. Number one is the LA Galaxy have their second longest losing streak in a single season with the 6 games. They tie 2007, which also had a 6-game losing streak. That in 2007 they went winless in 8, just in case you're sort of tracking. I haven't seen the winless column and whether or not that gets worse. I just tracked this and then sort of saw where it went. And then the worst ever was 7 losses, so you're 1 away from tying that in 2006. I would like to point out that if you go through the LA Galaxy's 25-year history, I picked the longest losing streak in each of those times. And if you look from basically when Bruce Arena came on in 2008, end of 2008, and then through 2009 all the way to 2016, the LA Galaxy, the most they ever lost under Bruce Arena, consecutive games. Guess, Eric, the most they ever lost in consecutive games. Everybody in the chat room gets to guess too. So you think about it, and I'm going to tell you my second thing, and then we're going to come back. Okay, so think about it. The most consecutive losses that Bruce Arena ever had from basically 2008 all the way through to 2016. Okay, everybody think about it. Make your guess.
I have my
here's
answer.
my second point. Okay, here's my second point. And this one is the bright spot in an otherwise dark and dim podcast is breaking news that Ted Lasso renewed for season 3. We get, not only is season 2 coming back, Eric, but they're going another season 3. So that is where we sit right now. It was a hit. All right, chat room starting to fill up with the guesses. I see a 3, I see a 2, I see a 4. Joe thinks that Bruce Arena lost 4 games in a row.
Yeah.
Oh, RC thinks it too. Dylan is going with 4. Okay, how many Hammer?
Well, you gave some hints there. Ted Lasso, season 3. I think it's 3. I think they've lost 2 in a row, and I think they maybe once or twice lost 3 in a row. I don't think they've lost 4 in a row or lost 4 in a row under Bruce. My answer is 3. Locking it in. Final answer for the million.
Final answer. The banker's going to give you a call. 3 is correct answer. Good job.
Thank you.
And it only happened once. Only once. Otherwise, it was 2, 2, 2, 1 in 2011, 3 in 2012. They lost 3 in a row, still won an MLS Cup. 2 in 13, 1 in 14. So 11 and 14 both had 1 was the longest time. They'd never lost consecutive games, which is just amazing.
That's incredible.
2 in 15 and 2 in 16. That's what you have right there. So anyway, those are the things. And it gives us a good chance to sort of, slide into this other thing. I will give Dan Steres props for coming out and talking. He had the captain's armband. He answered the bell.
Yes.
He doesn't know what's wrong with this team. I don't think GBS knows what's wrong with this team, which is scary and a little bit crazy. So, we sort of go, what's wrong with the LA Galaxy? We talked about GBS a little bit. I said that I think they're tactically inept under Guillermo Barros Schelotto. If I didn't use those exact words, I'll say it just like I just did. They're tactically inept. Dennis DeClosa is on the hot seat as well. He has put this team together. Chris Klein, Dan Beckerman, president of AEG, right? These are people who are responsible for how this team looks on the field. And no matter what you say, you have to understand that the front office and everything that it does, so no matter what sort of business side of things in the front office happens, it all affects what happens on the field. So in my mind, it's impossible to separate the front office from what's on the field because that's all working towards one goal. If you work for the LA Galaxy Foundation, by the way, the charitable arm of the LA Galaxy, you're exempt from this criticism because you're doing wonderful work and keep it up. you thought I was going to throw the charity under the bus?
They need to shut the foundation down. No more Earth Day celebration. That's too far, Guesman. Too far.
That's too far. Yeah, not even I'm going that far. So I mean, let's start. And listen, this show's going to be a little bit longer, and we kind of knew it was going to be a little bit longer. And even though we have very little notes on this, there's plenty to talk about. So we knew that. Let's start with Guillermo Barros Schelotto. Does he stay or does he go? Has he gone too far? Is there any way for him to recover for this, Eric?
Man, that's a tough question. I think. Is it what I think should happen or what I think is going to happen? Because I think at the end of the season,
you can preface.
Yeah, I'll preface. I think at the end, the 6 games left, 6 or 7 games left, I don't think someone else is going to turn it around. I don't think Dom Kinnear is the answer. We've seen that show before. So firing him now, I don't know what that does. I think letting him go at the end of the season, I think he's lost this team. I think he's unable to motivate them. He's not changing tactics. He's not making changes. I don't know that he's the right guy for the job at this point. And this is someone who has a lot of pedigree, was able to do a lot of great things. Maybe it's a symptom, and we're going to go into other people. He didn't get the ingredients that he wanted to cook with. Maybe it's that, and maybe we didn't get to see. And you see with the type of players, he played the 4-4-2, but he had Perry Kitchen and Sasha Kleshran as his options in the midfield. So maybe that 4-4-2 could have worked, but he didn't have the ingredients to make it work. So maybe it's not all on him. But I think when you lose this many games and you don't have the answers, you start to lose the locker room a little bit. And I think we're starting to see that, maybe to no fault of his own, but I think that his time is very close to being up.
Mason in Ireland, if you know them on 710 ESPN, are they still there? I don't listen to like terrestrial radio almost at all anymore, but they were.
But I know they have a fun game.
Yeah, they have the blame pie. Right, the blame pie.
Yep.
And I think the blame pie is the most important thing for us to do right now. You have 4 guys, and everybody's saying, hey, Jovan Kirovski should be in this as well. Here's the deal. Jovan Kirovski works for these guys, okay? So, you can sort of say that they sort of have to go with the staff and the different thing. So if you had a blame pie and you have 4 people and it has to equal 100%, okay, that makes it harder. Usually they have like 3 people, but we're going to go with 4. 4 people on the blame pie. So Guillermo Barros Schelotto, Dennis DeClosa, Klein, and Beckerman. Where do you put your percentages for the blame pie? Would you like me to go first while you think about it? Because I didn't think about this either, but I saw
there would not be math.
Yeah. I was I'm sort of in there. Right now, with where this team is, I think that you have to put, and I would say 50% of this is on Guillermo Barros Schelotto, just because he's the coach, he's the one making the tactical suggestions, and this team has been devoid of any sort of tactical inspiration or game plan since the beginning of the season. And probably, by the way, if you go back into the Zlatan time, they were also devoid of any game plan other than get it to Zlatan, which worked very well when you have Zlatan. Okay, I think we can all agree that is a problem. And so I'll put 50% there. I'll put 30% of this on Dennis DeClosa, because he's the general manager. He's the guy who's supposed to be getting the correct players for Guillermo Barros Schelotto. Okay, so I am at what am I at? 70%? I already forgot. I should have written it down. So 50 and 20.
Plus,
Yeah.
No, did you say 20 or 30?
Oh, 30? Okay, let's go with 30. 80. It's fine.
So you're at 80,
and so we're at 80. All right.
Doesn't
and
leave a lot left.
I will go 15% on Klein. And I'll tell you why in a second. I'll do the last 5% is Dan Beckerman. Okay. Now, having put together my blame pie, I'm going to tell you these are the people that I think don't deserve to be with the LA Galaxy anymore. I think Guillermo Barros Schelotto doesn't deserve to be with the LA Galaxy anymore. I think he's shown, very much like you said, Eric, that he has not been able to keep this team engaged, tactically smart, strong, mentally strong. None of those things have happened under Guillermo Barros Schelotto, and so I think he's gone. I think that Chris Klein, as one of the last facets of and the face of this organization, and you can talk about the reason I gave him so much little percentage in this 15 compared to 5 to Beckerman, is Klein doesn't make a lot of the soccer decisions anymore. Having said that, he hired Dennis DeClosa. Having said that, he's been around since Bruce Arena left, and he's in charge of making most of these decisions that have come down. And if the buck doesn't stop with the president of the club, then where does it stop? You can't hide from that. So Klein probably doesn't deserve to be with the LA Galaxy anymore. And Dan Beckerman, as president of AEG, he has run the Kings and the LA Galaxy into the ground since he's come into this. There's zero chance and zero way in my mind that he should survive this. Now, I left one person off, and I gave him 30% of the blame, basically. With Dennis DeClosa. Dennis is the one sort of bright spot for me. I know he hasn't been perfect. I still believe in what Dennis DeClosa can do with a team and the right coach. And whether that's naive, that's fine. I'm just saying, if you're going to fire another coach, if you're going to clean house the way you need somebody to stay and transition. And I have more faith in Dennis DeClosa than I do in any of the other ones. All right, your blame pie.
Blame pie. All right, I'm going 40% GBS. Similar to you, I think he's the biggest part of the blame because he's the one in charge. He's the one making a move, regardless of, what you have put in front of you. As the coach, it's your responsibility to get it going. I think 20. Let's say 30. I'll agree with you that. Let me say no. I'll change it up. I'll say 25% to DTK. I think I'm with you. He's a likable person. I think he says the right things, but at the same time, this is his second year multiple transfer windows, opportunities to bring players in, and he hasn't brought in the right type of players. I think you look at this team right now, it's poorly constructed. They don't have the on-field, talent to compete in MLS, and it shows in the standings and it shows in this losing streak. And that's on DTK. It's his responsibility, to bring the right players in, and he hasn't done that over the last couple of years. So what am I at? 40%, 25%. Yeah. I'm at 65. Yeah, 65. I'm going to go, and then I'm going to go 30% Chris Klein. Because again, this is now, how many lives does he have? Because how many coaches has he gone through? How many general managers has he gone through? How many, people has he put in a position where they're supposed to scout and bring in players? He's the one pulling those strings and making those calls. So I think at this point, after, 6 years of being away from an MLS Cup and not competing in the playoffs and not having winning seasons and having the worst season under his watch, and now what is possibly the second worst season, or again, an even worse season under his watch, how many chances is he going to keep getting? So I think, 30%. And then I leave that last 5% with Beckerman, just because he's writing the checks, he's buying out players, he's everything that you would want an owner to do, or you would want someone who makes those. He's giving them the freedom. He's giving Klein the freedom. He's brought in DTK. They're willing to spend money, but it just the moves aren't right, and it hasn't been right. So I don't know that the blame is entirely on him, but to that same token, he's the one who's in charge of making putting the people in the right position. So he does need some of that blame, but I don't know. Are we really going to Dan Beckerman to make the soccer decisions that are going to turn this Galaxy team around? No, we need Daddy with a nice checkbook.
Right. No, and here's the thing, right? Is growing up and certainly covering the team under Tim Leiweke, there was a person at AEG who was intimately involved with the soccer operations at the LA Galaxy. We knew that. Tim and Bruce would get together and they had plans and they had dreams and they knew what they wanted to do and they went out and did it. What you have right now from Dan Beckerman seems an almost arm's length sort of deal with the LA Galaxy, which is, I'm just going to be up here, I'll sign checks and do that stuff, but I show up for press conferences. That's what it seems like. And you can't say that you're putting in there. And RC points out, by the way, and it's a correct criticism, I think, of us, is that we're letting Dan Beckerman way too off the leash. I'm not. I told you who I would get rid of for this thing, and I think Eric sort of might be there as well, or at least close with me. Is that Beckerman? It's hard in organizations that are big. The guys who are at the top, the buck stops with them. It doesn't matter how much involvement they had; they allowed it to happen under their stuff. So my blame pie shows who I think is directly responsible for the faults of the team. My firing pie, which is not really a pie because you just I'm going to say you're gone.
Everybody
has
Becker.
Pie. Yeah, as he can have pie when you're packing your desk on the way out. Is Dan Beckerman needs to go. He has failed in his capacity with AEG to manage the LA Kings and the LA Galaxy. And I don't bring the Kings into this to talk about the LA Kings. It's because that's part of his job as well, is the LA Kings. And so you have to look at it. If the Kings were really good, Eric, and then you would sit there and say, well, you're not going to get rid of him because he's done a good job with the LA Kings, but they haven't been good. And the Galaxy haven't been good.
But the parallels to the Kings and what they are trying to do, they are, putting themselves in a low position, but they're acquiring a lot of youth, a lot of draft picks, and the future looks bright for the Kings, even though there are times low. The times are low right now, and hockey's a little bit different. So you need that youth movement to happen. With the Galaxy, the youth movement of Ethan Zubak and Efrain Alvarez and Julian Araujo, that's not going to get you MLS. That's not good enough. You need more than that. You want those pieces there, but it's a different system. So I don't. You're right. The Kings have not been great in recent years, but they're setting themselves up similarly, trying to use youth and trying to build from the ground up, which it looks like what they tried to do with the Galaxy. But difference, it's apples and oranges. You can't do the same thing for both organizations.
Right. It was fun. Bob, by the way, says, "Man, so much math on this show." The chat room's going wild with the blame pies in there. By the way,
I think your blame pies.
Yeah. Yes. I don't. You know what? Something about that doesn't seem like it's okay. So maybe don't send us your blame pie. I don't want to know what your blame pie looks like. I don't know what your blame pie looks like. Please don't send it to me. I don't know. I'm a little scared now.
I think Johnathan Dos Santos was doing some TikToks with a couple of blame pies. All right, moving on.
That's a good one.
Moving on.
All right.
Moving on.
Speaking of Johnathan Dos Santos, what a segue. Professionals.
That's what I do.
Yeah, speaking of Johnathan Dos Santos and Rolf Felcher, supposedly both are back and in quarantine in Los Angeles from their international trips. The idea is that they go and they stay for 10 days, they have tests, and then they are able to come back and play. That means that both players will not be available for the Sunday's game against the Vancouver Whitecaps, but both, it seems like, at least borderline very close, should be back for the LAFC game. We'll see if that ends up happening. It is going to come down to, a couple hours, really, whenever you look at the whole thing and how it shakes out. So that being said, Johnathan Dos Santos, Rolf Felcher, both back in quarantine. The LA Galaxy now, after this San Jose Earthquakes loss, have 5 games left, plus some makeup games if they end up being made up, and God only knows if they're going to be made up because they don't really fit into things. So just that's where you sit as of right now, and that's interesting. So let's get to the rumor section, and this is an interesting one, and I know most of you have already been following this, is that Elmer Sousa, and I should point out, Elmer is actually a friend of mine, and he used to work for Time Warner Cable Deportes whenever it was the Deportes and Time Warner, and so he was a great reporter. He was part of the Deportes team, and I think he was either a sideline reporter or he was up in the booth. I can't remember exactly. Elmer was great. We worked on a whole bunch of stuff for the LA Galaxy whenever the TV deal first took off. All those top 10 lists were a lot of me and Elmer and like 6 or 7 other people putting that stuff together so we could do it. So Elmer is a trusted source on this. And Elmer Sousa is reporting that Robbie Keane could be a candidate to replace Guillermo Barros Schelotto. Yes, that Robbie Keane. Keane them himself, the man who graces our studio.
Not the guy from Cobra Kai?
Not the guy from Cobra Kai, which definitely has an LA Galaxy. There's an LA Galaxy producer or somebody, a writer, who's a fan.
It was unintentional.
Yes. Okay. However it was, but yes, it was. It's all there. Robbie Keane could be coming back to the LA Galaxy. I'll tell you right now, our group text that we had was very angry all of a sudden whenever there were certain opinions about Robbie Keane and where it comes from. I know the Panda put out his opinion, basically saying that Robbie Keane doesn't have any experience as a head coach and is, the LA Galaxy, entry level position. I don't know that I will go as extreme as the Panda because I don't necessarily believe that 100%. But the question needs to be asked. If you're going out and going to replace somebody with Guillermo Barros Schelotto, this team has been a roller coaster since Bruce Arena left. If you want to go back to the timeline real quick, the LA Galaxy chase off Dave Sarakin, who could have been a really good successor to Bruce Arena. Bruce Arena then leaves for the national team. Bruce goes and takes all of his people with him. They put Kurt Onalfo after an exhaustive search, which wasn't very exhaustive, to get Kurt Onalfo in position. They get him there. He doesn't make it through the whole season. Siggy Schmidt comes in. By the way, Siggy was angling for that job since he knew Bruce was leaving, so that was all sort of under the table stuff that was going on behind the scenes. Siggy Schmidt comes in. Siggy doesn't make it through. He makes it through one season, but doesn't make it through the second season. Dominic Kinnear takes over as an interim head coach, does the best the LA Galaxy have done really with the team, but they fall short. They fall short. Right. And then there was the search for Guillermo Barros Schelotto. It was almost Caleb Porter. Remember Caleb Porter at the Lakers game? Still, by the way, we don't want him as an LA Galaxy coach. And if you ever see me in person, you can ask me why, and I'll tell you why. So Caleb Porter doesn't do it. They end up signing Guillermo Barros Schelotto. That is the history that you have had with the LA Galaxy since Bruce Arena left. There are tons of names in there that could have been but weren't, but were close, but then were, that then got fired and then quit. And then everything fell apart. Guillermo Barros Schelotto is going to be the next person to get let go. I don't know if that if it gets fixed by Robbie. Don't you need you really need a stabilizer at this point, and you need somebody who's going to come in. And you thought that was Guillermo Barros Schelotto because he's getting the most time. He has Dennis DeClosa as his sidekick in this. You thought that it was going to go. Here's the thing. You're having a guy who's going to come in, and by the way, Robbie Keane, supremely talented, wonderful MLS player, wonderful international player, world class. There's none of this stuff I want to limit, Eric. And I think that was sort of the thing is like people are saying, well, you're limiting all of the experience he has. I'm not. In my mind, Robbie Keane is a risk for the LA Galaxy to sign. I like it. I'm not going to say no, but there's a risk in doing this. And you have to let him learn how to be a head coach. He's been an assistant coach. He's certainly played under many head coaches. It doesn't always translate. What do you think about the Robbie Keane rumor here?
Yeah, I was kind of, I'm going to ride that fence once again. I don't think that the LA Galaxy is an entry level position, but at the same time, when you have someone at the level of Robbie Keane, it's someone who might be worth the risk because he's someone who's going to bring a lot of soccer intelligence, is going to know how to put things together. He's been an assistant. You look at recent players who have become managers: Patrick Vieira, Thierry Henry, Frank Lampard, right, Steven Gerrard, even someone like Luis Enrique, in Spain. These are all former players, easily translated into becoming a head coach and achieved a relative amount of success. Andrea Pirlo, is Juventus an entry-level job? It's his first coaching job, but of course, when you have, the talent that they have, it's going to be a little bit easier than maybe working with a couple G2 guys and then some DPs. It's going to be different, asking them what to do. The other thing that I think needs to be considered, and I was going to ask you to filibuster a little bit while I looked into it, but, we mentioned people like Pep Guardiola and Jose Mourinho, and I know these are big names. I'm not saying that they're in the hunt for the LA Galaxy, but when they became head coaches, they were assistants under or played for someone like Bobby Robson, is where their coaching tree comes from. So they had a mentorship and they had an example. Looking at Robbie Keane's career, I don't know that he's learned from like a Sir Alex Ferguson or a Bobby Robson or someone who has a philosophy that they instilled in. And I wanted to look up, who the Ireland coach was. Who was the coach? What club was he at? Aston Villa? Was that the other club that he was at? He was at one of
right.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to filibuster and look at. But bottom line is he's not working with a mastermind and someone who's going to have a philosophy. So maybe him being an assistant coach, he's not going to bring that level. So maybe that leap, you're right, it is a risk. But at the same time, it's not as big of a risk as, Kurt Adolfo. You know what I mean? Well, I think something, right. You're going to get someone who knows the club. You talk about knowing what it means to wear the badge. That's someone who knows what it means, to wear the crest. So I don't think it's crazy, but on that same token, riding the fence, it's not a home run. It's not an easy choice. Robbie Keane doesn't take this team and turn it around and make them winners all of a sudden. You can't take that to the bank.
Can I be sentimental with this? Because so first of all, I'm going to get to why I want to be sentimental, and then I'm going to tell you why I think Robbie Keane could make a really good LA Galaxy coach. And I think, Eric, you touched on a bunch of it. So let me tell you about being sentimental. Most coaches, and Bruce Arena was the exception, really. Most coaches get fired whenever they're done, right? Things go wrong. Eventually it doesn't work. Things need to be changed. Ben Olsen was as I was talking to somebody, Ben Olsen was an okay soccer player and an even worse coach. But he lasted for a while and he had the fabric of the team and people really liked it because he knew what it meant to be, in a DC United uniform. You like that. That's where you get Robbie Keane. And by the way, two different careers. I don't want to compare them. People are like, you just compared Robbie Keane to Ben Olsen. No, Robbie Keane, head and shoulders above. I love Robbie. He's intense. I think he's fair. I don't think he would let people slack off. He is hard on people. He's Zlatan but shorter. So it's really, he can be less demonstrative only because his wingspan isn't 12 feet. So Robbie Keane doesn't do that. Having said that, Robbie Keane as a player was an uber competitor, and as an uber competitor, he was not always the best guy to be around, and so you wonder about the coaches and stuff like that. He knows what it means to win a championship with Los Angeles Galaxy. I think his family would enjoy being back. I think he would enjoy being back. I think that LA Galaxy fans would embrace him, and I think he would embrace the fans. So, I mean, there's a lot of positives to do this, but if you're getting to the sentimental part at the end, you go there and you say, okay, eventually you're going to have to fire Robbie Keane. And it was already tough sort of, divorcing from Robbie Keane.
How they let them go.
How they let him go before. So do you want to do that again? And does that hurt his sort of standing as the king? If he goes out and in 2 years he's out on his butt because the LA Galaxy can't get it together again?
I want to say no, because I think they're two different buckets, and I think you have to give fans credit to understand that playing days and coaching days are different things, and understanding that it's a different task. of what it means to undertake. So Robbie Keane, current assistant at Middlesbrough, or up until this year. So under Neil Warnock. So I don't know how deep the Neil Warnock coaching tree is, but I don't know what's, but again, he's seeing how a coach and a philosophy and a team works. So it could possibly work. Eventually, if you do, every coach is going to get fired. There's no coach who's coached for 100 years last time I checked. So at some point you're going to have to let them go. And I think you could still have club legend status and, even if you're not successful as a head coach, and understand that, they're two different things. It may taint it though. You look at someone like Isaiah Thomas. I know this is a basketball, but Isaiah Thomas, who was great with the Detroit Pistons, but ran the Knicks organization into the ground. So that's kind of tainted his legacy. Magic Johnson, Lakers, great. There's no argument, one of the greatest Lakers of all time. But as a head coach and a front office head, ran the organization into the ground a little bit. It's tainted his legacy. So you're right. It may leave a mark, but I don't think you're going to change, what he was able to bring on the field.
It's exciting. It's at least exciting. I will say that. By the way, pointing out John Wooden never got fired. That was a good one. Good pull, John Wooden. Bruce Arena.
That's fair.
Bruce Arena didn't get fired from the LA Galaxy. All right. Thank you very much.
He was left to pursue other opportunities.
That's right. He was ready to go.
And maybe Ireland comes calling. Maybe something happens. Yeah, you're right. Maybe you don't end up, having a bad breakup.
Maybe everybody parts. There's those unicorns every once in a while where the two parties are like, you know what? It's just not working. Yeah, it's not working for me either. You see it mostly in rom-coms. And I'm doing. I'll go sideways with that. Philip goes, Josh, what formation would Keno play with this current team? Very simply, Robbie Keane would want to be on the field with this current team. He would play as striker, and then everybody else would just fill in behind him. I have no idea. I don't know what Robbie Keane's coaching style is, mosely because he hasn't coached anywhere. Why? Because they played a 4-4-2 that wasn't really a 4-4-2? They didn't play a 4-4-2. That was what it was called.
He brings Giassi back.
He brings that's what it is. By the way, chat room talking, and if you are going to move on from Dennis DeClosa, very rightfully pointed out that somebody like Todd Donovan would be a very good add. Currently the GM at Sacramento Republic and getting that team into Major League Soccer, and he's been on this show many times. He's actually, I would consider him a friend of the show for sure. He's been on this show since almost its inception. So Todd would be great as well. There are lots of people who could come in here. But bottom line is something has to change with the LA Galaxy. You saw it. And by the way, people are talking about Sunday's game, and let's move a little bit into Sunday's game. It's already, well over an hour since we started, but let's talk a little bit about Sunday's game. LA Galaxy.
Before you get there, this is how bad things are. We're talking about Robbie Keane, future manager. We're talking about firing Chris Klein, firing Dan Beckerman. There's a game on Sunday, and that's the last thing we want to talk about. So that just tells you how bad things are right now. Go on.
Well, I mean, the other part about that is that we always talk about the game coming up at the end of the show, but I don't want to ruin your. Yeah, but still. Yeah, I said it first. Just I would like to point that out. So no, we come into this game. Here's the thing. Even if they win this game, and I'll give you a little bit of a preview of it here in a second, but even if they win this game, it's appeasement at this point. It is not a change. It is not a trend. They've stopped the slide. Congratulations. You didn't have the worst. You didn't tie the record for the worst losing streak ever to do it. You're also talking about, a game. Vancouver Whitecaps who are in Portland, by the way. That's their home base. They have to fly from Portland down to LA for the LAFC midweek game, which they won, by the way, 2-1. They have to fly back to Portland. Then they're going to go Portland back to LA for the LA game. It's a lot of travel for them. And having said that, I would consider the Vancouver Whitecaps favorites right now because the LA Galaxy are mentally broken. I don't see it. And if they win this game, it means nothing. But what it will do is it means nothing. You'd have to win 3 or 4 of these, last 5 games to really start to move that pendulum back to anything. And by the way, Galaxy perfectly capable of making the playoffs. Even as I say that, they are in 24th out of 25 teams in Major League Soccer and very close to that wooden spoon. There are expansion teams, and not very good expansion teams, but there are expansion teams that are above the LA Galaxy.
I was going to say 25 out of 26, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, did I say 24?
24 out of 25.
No. Oh,
yeah,
25 out of 26. Yeah, but still. 25 out of 26. They're sitting, second to last. So that wooden spoon is closer to within grasp than any playoff thing is. So Sunday, October 18th, 7:30 p.m. on Spectrum Sportsnet. Yay, Spectrum! Vancouver coming off of a 2-1 win over LAFC midweek. It's a lot of travel for them. And so, this is a game the LA Galaxy won. They need to win if they have any hopes of really trying to reach the playoffs. It's not a must win, but they need to win this game. And it's a chance for them to react. Having said that, Eric, they were supposed to react in the San Jose game, and they came out flatter. And by the way, they had a whole week off in between games to do that, and they got nothing. So I don't have much hope for this game against Vancouver.
Yeah, that's the frustrating thing about the loss to San Jose and just this slide. And you're right. If they win against Vancouver, good. You're supposed to beat Vancouver. But much like Colorado of seasons past, Vancouver earlier this year and at the end of last year, teams that they are supposed to beat, they don't beat, and that just tells you where they are. If it was someone like Seattle coming down, even Portland when they came and dropped all those goals on them, you say, well, Portland's second in the West. You kind of expect those things. So it's a lose-lose because if you win, you're supposed to beat them. If you lose, you now tie that streak. I mentioned this on Instagram earlier, and it needs to be pointed out. The frustrating thing about this Galaxy team is even with a win, they're still in last place. And so that's how far of a hole that they've dug themselves out of. They now need multiple wins just to get out of last place. And then that still wouldn't be good enough to put them past Colorado, who hasn't played, in almost a month, and they still sit above the Galaxy. And even if the Galaxy win, they still couldn't leapfrog Colorado, who isn't even playing any games at the moment. So they've dug themselves a deep hole. So right now, I think it's about the playoff conversation that needs to, that shouldn't be a conversation. It should be climbing out of last place. And then once you get further in reach, you could have that conversation. Right now, it's stop the bleeding, turn things around. But like you said, why wasn't it turned around last week? You had the weekend off. Colorado, that game got canceled. So they should have been up and ready for this game. Same thing. You just got smacked in the face by your rivals. You should see some fire. You should see some anger. They should come out ready to win this game. But everything that we've seen in the 6-game losing streak has shown. So until they show us different, I don't know that I'm expecting a win.
Galaxy has won 4 games this season. 4 games. Going to be close to 23 games
in a row.
So far they've won 4 games. Yeah, 4 and that was it. Just 4 games in a row. That was it. Those were all the wins. Congratulations, you made it to all of them. And it was, wasn't that fun? Wasn't that a good time? Was it, even though you were in the back of your mind, you were questioning whether or not this LA Galaxy team was for real. It was fun.
How is this happening?
Yeah, they played well. They did all of that, but yeah, it's bad to sort of look at. It's bad, and it doesn't fix anything. A win doesn't fix anything. It moves them in a general direction that's better in the direction that they're going right now. But it's like, there's whenever you throw a ball up in the air, there's that pause at the very top, like there's where it's almost not moving. That would be the LA Galaxy if they won. They would be paused, not moving, but just, right in that little transition where, they could either start flying back down again or it all goes sideways. Do you have any 538 stats? Did you look them up, or did you did? Okay, good. You're a better person than I am. Yes. Go ahead. Give me 538.
538. I want to highlight the playoff percentages. There was a time where the Galaxy were, in the 80s and in the 70% chance to make the playoffs. Right now, the Galaxy sit in 538 with a 17% chance of making the playoffs, which, by my math is not good. You look at the teams that are around them: Vancouver, Houston, FC Cincinnati, DC United, and then Real Salt Lake. There's actually a big jump up. Vancouver's 19%. Real Salt Lake goes to 32%. But look at those teams: Vancouver, Houston, Cincinnati, DC United, dead last. That's the company that the Galaxy are in right now. So that tells you the projections, and based on the way things are going, that's why I said I don't think playoffs is something that should be a discussion, because that's just not, it doesn't seem like that's going to be a reality. It's going to be avoiding the wooden spoon. But with all that being said, the LA Galaxy is still favored this weekend to beat Vancouver. They have a 64% chance to win, a 17% chance to Vancouver, and then a 19% chance for a draw. So still the favorites because they're at home. And I think, like you mentioned, because Vancouver's traveling, because all those other factors, short rest, but at the same time, they beat LAFC. So they've got something. They're on a 2-game win streak. So don't expect to beat up on Vancouver. They're going to come in motivated and ready to win as well.
The LA Galaxy and their goal predictions. If this was a 34-game season, based upon the goals that they've given up so far, the LA Galaxy would have allowed 72.3 goals in a 34-game season, which I believe would be a record, a not-so-good record, and they will have only scored 44.6 goals. I talked about the minus 13 goal differential being the worst or the second worst in LA Galaxy history if it all ended right now. Playoffs? You want to talk about the playoffs? No, we don't want to talk about the playoffs. Yeah, the play. You want to talk about the play? The best thing I ever did was show my wife that video and practice. You want to talk about practice? Not a game, but practice, because now I get to use those and she gets to use those at me. And quite honestly, I think it's the key to a happy marriage. That and having a ghost in your house. Those are the things that I would say. Yeah, go ahead.
And it also probably helped with the Ted Lasso reference when that was referenced on the show. And then one of my other favorite ones, I actually have two more favorites because we're off the rails already. We're running late. Press conferences. Yeah, look up. I believe that's Jim Mora Sr. playoffs. Allen Iverson practice. Google these. Right. Next one. Denny Green. They are who we thought they were. You know, with the Chicago Bears coming and beating up on them. And then you want to crown them. Great speech there. Right. And then the last one is Oklahoma State. I think I'm getting that right. You want to come at me? I'm a man. I'm 40. So again, look those up. Great press conferences. Don't talk about these kids. Come to me. I'm a man. I'm 40. Great line.
I love that. That's good. No, those are some great things there. By the way, that's some good old-fashioned sports. And that Denny Green, I was in Arizona and he was the head coach of the Cardinals at the time, and watched that game on TV and was cracking up whenever he was. They are who we thought they were. You want to crown them? Crown them. I was great.
I think that was Matt Leinart.
It's so much fun.
Who took a beating.
Yeah, it could have been. It very well could have been. All right. I think that does it for us. The LA Galaxy face off against the Vancouver Whitecaps on October 18th, 7:30 p.m. on Spectrum Sportsnet. Yes, last word.
Game prediction? Score?
Oh, game prediction. LA Galaxy lose 7-0. No, that's too much. 2-1. 2-1. I'll just reel that back.
That's what I have.
Yeah.
I have a loss 2-1 as well.
You know what happens? They probably tie this game. It's a real sort of kiss your sister moment. It's gonna do absolutely nothing.
The Vancouver Whitecaps have not tied a single game this season. 7 wins, 11 losses in 18 games. This is the game. They're due.
Now you know.
You're gonna hit green. 0-0.
My roulette thing. It came up black 7 times in a row. It's gonna be red. All right, we'll let everybody go. You can head over to our Discord. Lots of discussion, lots of angry people. I understand it. Everybody keeping it pretty civil. I only had to threaten to beat somebody up once, so it was fine. All right, if you're looking for nothing, Eric, why don't you tell people where they can find you, and then we'll get on out of here.
It's Thursday, not Monday. All right, you can find me on Twitter at HammerEV. You could also find me on Instagram at Galaxy Profile. That's Galaxy PROFOUL. And also check out Grading the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. There are new grades and player averages posted after every game.
All right, if you're looking for me on Twitter at Guesman at Galaxy Podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. We'll leave it with that. All right, for Eric, the Portuguese Hammer, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy from cornerofthegalaxy.com. Be safe, everyone.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.